Good evening and welcome to Live United. Just to remind everyone that in our viewer audience, Live United is about giving, advocating, and volunteering. Tonight our guest is Phoebe Bray from the Community Kitchen. Welcome, Phoebe.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here. The Community Kitchen is a very special place in the Monadnock region in providing an amazing service to our citizens. Can you tell us a little bit about the history? And as you do that, we're going to bring up some pictures that show the building and let you share a little bit, because it's a really kind of unique history to the Community Kitchen.
I think it is. It was formed in 1982 originally. People sat around a dinner table one evening, as I understand it, and by 1983 they were cooking dinner in 3 church basements and serving community meals. I think it got a bit tiring, schlepping everything around from kitchen to kitchen, and it became evident that the need really wasn't just a hot meal at the end of the day. People were asking if they could take the food home with them and if they had extra food, and that led on to the supplementary food boxes. But they were being handed out from the back of a pickup. So by the end of the 1980s, it became evident that there really needed to be a base. And we had an amazing fundraising committee, and in 1994, they purchased where we are now on Mechanic Street. They then emptied the fundraising campaign, buying the building, and we're very lucky that it is owned by us, lock, stock, and barrel and brick. So they had to do more fundraising it had an interesting history. Everybody who comes into the building said, "Oh my goodness, the bowling alley used to be upstairs." And then lots of people sit in our office and say, "Didn't this used to be the motorcycle shop?" Which it did. It was, I think it was Andy's Cycle. And so they then had to fundraise, because we had to put the office in, we had to put the kitchen in, and we opened for business at Mechanic Street in 1998.
So you're still located on Mechanic Street.
Yes,
it's quite a building, and I believe you utilize that whole building right now.
Every single inch. We have one main room, which is our dining room, but it's also our sort room, because we pick up food 7 days a week. And when we salvage food, the supermarkets throw out a lot of the stuff that we really shouldn't pick up. But we have volunteers who come in and go through it, and they're amazing. They can pick up an avocado and say, "Yeah, this will last 2 days." And but then we also have half our pantry distribution is in our dining room, and then at the end of every weekday we have a dinner. So it is very well used, and we're sometimes a little bit pushed for space.
So right now, who are the people that you serve out in the community?
I was asked just before Christmas, actually, if I could describe the average pantry client, and I couldn't, because we run from senior citizens who thought when they retired they had enough money to last them, and then every decade that goes by, prices go up, who thought that heating oil would be... we had a lady who retired in the early 1990s, and heating oil was 81 cents a gallon when she retired. Well, if you can think on to now, it's like $3.60 a gallon, and a lot of their budgets can't cope with that. They're also, a lot of them retire with an amount in a savings account, and we have a lot of people who come in and register and say, "I'm done, I have no more savings," so they don't have a reserve. We're also seeing more people who have lost their job and thought that they would get another job in 1, 2, 3 months. And this is 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, even past the year, where they haven't found another job. And I wish people, as soon as they hit any kind of financial obstacle, they would think of us, because we can give them food for 3 days. We guarantee to give them at least 3 days worth of food a week. And you can come every week, as long as the only criteria you have is that you're low income. We also have younger people come in. There's like a young homeless problem in Keene, and we're happy to see them come in for at least a hot meal and somewhere to sit. And there is I think a homeless population that come in primarily for the hot meals of all ages. So that's the only criteria is you're low income.
So it sounds like you're serving people of all ages.
Yes.
All different backgrounds.
Yes.
And that sometimes the service is more to fill maybe a temporary need even that they may have.
We had a lady come in and her transmission had gone in her car. And she had emptied her checking account, her savings account, and maxed out her credit card. And she said, well, I'm only going to come in as long as I need it. And she came in for, I think, probably 5 or 6 weeks. And then she was able to actually, and her landlord was working with her, which was amazing. So we only saw her and her children for a short span of time. And then once they'd got past the need, they no longer came in.
So it serves temporary need, it serves those that may have longer term need.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned some of the sort of background or demographics of the population that you're serving, because I think people oftentimes think of the homeless as the people in need of places like the community kitchen. But because you're serving people with these boxes that get them through a week of food supplies, you're really filling a much greater need that is, we are all challenged in this time of losing jobs, having to make decisions whether we fix the car or whether we buy fuel oil.
It's heat or eat.
Heat or eat. That's a great way to describe it. Talk a little bit more about some of the programs that you're offering. And I believe we also have some pictures of people actually working in those programs.
We have 2 main programs. We have the pantry program, which gives supplementary food boxes, and we have our hot meals program, which Monday through Friday we give a dinner, and the dinner is free and open to everybody. We also have a lighter lunch on Sundays. And we qualify people for the pantry program. And we use the USDA financial guidelines, which come in at 185% of the federal poverty level. So people bring in proof of residency for Cheshire County, proof of income. They need proof of date of birth for every household member. So we also need some sort of documentation to prove that if they're claiming for 3 children, if they're already on food stamps, then their food stamps letter will have everybody who is covered in their household. If they're a senior, then they'll get their Social Security letter, and that gives their address, their income, and we re-verify every year just to make sure that somebody doesn't win the lottery and they still come in and pick up their box. So we are quite adamant about the pantry program being a verifiable program.
So I know we were just flipping through some pictures, and I'm going to have us flip through those again and have you describe a little bit to the audience about what's happening in these, because I think it really speaks to not only the service that you're providing, but some of the support that you receive from the community. So we're going to roll back through those pictures. And I'm going to have you, Phoebe, talk a little bit about what we're seeing in each of those pictures.
Okay. Well, this is our building. It's not a spectacularly beautiful building, but it is a very functional. It's actually had quite an interesting history. We're right opposite the Social Security building on Mechanic Street, and I think that's a landmark that shows people where we are. We don't have a loading dock, which limits us, but actually we don't have a freight elevator, so everything has to be broken down and taken upstairs. We are 100% wheelchair accessible. All the meals and the pantry are downstairs, so even if you're in a wheelchair or physically impaired, you can come in and through the pantry and access the meals as well.
I know one of the things you mentioned to me is that you're serving so many people now, and maybe you can share how many people you are serving, that you're beginning to outgrow this building.
Well, it's really what we want to do rather than what we do. We've been running cooking classes and we don't actually have a teaching kitchen. We can have people in our kitchen, but we also prepare a meal for 120 people every day. So when I go in and tell the hot meals coordinator that, oh, by the way, we've got cooking matters for the next 6 weeks, so on a Friday morning, you can't go into the kitchen because we'll have upwards of 15 people in there learning how to make sauce, how to make soup. He does tend to look at me a bit sideways. And we're crunched for space if we have, on Wednesdays, we have pantry distribution, we have hot meals, and we also sort in the morning. So my dream is to have a designated pantry space that the staff could, set aside for the pantry distribution. And if we could have a meeting room or a classroom or a teaching room, that would be absolutely wonderful, so that when Keene State brings students in, I'm not competing for everything else that's going in through the dining room. We also have to break down every pallet of food that's delivered and take it upstairs on a conveyor belt. I had never heard the word depalletize or repalletize until I started. I think they made them up. But we have to depalletize and repalletize. And the worst day I think we had was when we had 24 pallets of food delivered in a day. And if you can imagine breaking down 24 pallets, taking it upstairs, and then restacking it on a pallet.
Wow.
It was a peach of a day.
Now, how many boxes in the course of a week do you typically give out?
Last week, we actually served, I think it was 535 families. So, and depending on the size of the family, we have, most of our families are 1 or 2, but we have some 6, 7, 8. We have one family of 10 going through the pantry at the moment. So they take home the equivalent of 3 days' food for each member of that family. We can't serve babies, but we do push people in the direction of WIC if they're new to the area and don't know what they can apply for.
So you do work with area partners to really meet the needs.
If people come and register, we ask whether they have gone to other agencies.
That's super. So what else do you see in terms of community need out there for this type of service?
What we've been offering is cooking workshops, because a lot of our seniors, they can take the box and stretch it for the whole week, because a lot of them grew up at the tail end of the Depression, through the war, the Second World War, when it was rationed, and we have them looking at the box of food, and it's like, give me a piece of steak and I can make a beef stew that'll last us 3 or 4 days, which I love to hear. Some people you're not born with cooking skills, although some people are.
Right.
So we offer basic cooking workshops, how to take, and some of the items that we hand out in the pantry are a little obscure. UNFI up in Chesterfield donate some whole grains, which is wonderful, but not everybody knows how to cook quinoa. Or we had wheat frika, which makes a lovely side dish, served either warm or cold. So we actually ran cooking workshops to show basic cooking skills. We've also partnered with the City of Keene Welfare Office and offered budget classes. It surprised me because we had some retired people who obviously went from full wages to Social Security, and we had one couple who were getting into tricky financial waters, and they did the budget class, and the gentleman came up afterwards and he said it was so simple what Natalie told them to do, but because they were so used to 2 full salaries coming in, it was a bit of a shock to actually go to Social Security. And I think it's unusual if both couples retire at the same time, but I think that's a need that we're happy to provide.
So doing some amazing programming over there. I think, Dave, we have a picture of, Dave's our producer, a picture of a typical box of food that people may receive.
And I think there are limitations to what we can hand out. In the picture you can see fresh fruit and vegetables. We always try and hand out, when we have them, potatoes, onions, carrots, because that's the basis for so many things. We are limited to the amount of protein we can hand out. I see bacon, and I think that's a pork joint. And last week we could give out 2 pieces of meat to each family. And what we do, I mean, if you go into the supermarket, you see a pound of stewing steak or a pound of ground beef, and we actually break it down into meat sizes. So, you know, a family of 1 to 3 will get the pound of ground beef, and then the bigger families will get the larger joints, because obviously they have more people to feed. We try as hard as we can to get away from processed foods, but to be quite honest, it's hard, because you know, a boxed meal is a great dinner that you can expand on. We give out a lot of mac and cheese. We give out cans of ravioli, and I think a lot of the manufacturers are actually cleaning up their labels. We try and give dairy, but with over 500 families going through, I cannot give milk every week. And I'm assuming that an awful lot of our people are on food stamps. So we give out what we are donated. I cannot afford to buy dairy for each family. We do, in this picture, you can see this is the beginning of the pantry distribution. And what we do on a Monday and a Tuesday, we look at the total amount of produce that we have, and we can estimate how many families are going through. So we then, if we've got 5-pound bags of potatoes, but we've got pallets of them, every family that goes through, be it 2 people or 10, well, the 10 would get 2, but they would get a bag of potatoes, a bag of onions, and we like to give out bulk fruit when we have it. We also, if you register and you have children in your family, we give out extra food to families with children, especially during the summer. You saw Ralph handing out potatoes before. Every year we like to give our volunteers, and this is a fairly widespread group, a volunteer appreciation lunch, where they don't have to cook the food, they don't have to serve it. The staff cook the food, and we usually have board members come in and serve, and it's a way of saying thank you. We always have a raffle, and it's food oriented. So a lot of the restaurants will give us gift certificates just to say thank you to the volunteers who give, you know, they are donors. They just give time, and it's another form of donation. And again, I'm really quite pleased some weeks when I go in, and we obviously had apples. 2013 was a bumper year for apples. The orchards hated it. I have to say we loved it. We were given and collected over 8,000 pounds of apples in last year's season. So I'm hoping 2014 is going to be a repeat. This was a lovely group of girls from the Fleur de Lis Leaders Camp. It's a camp that trains camp leaders. And we had a mess outside the front of our building. It was basically a weed lot. And people were leaving their bikes there. So we went, one of the local hardware stores gave us a really good price on some paving blocks and sand. And these girls, and it was late 80s, early 90s. It was one of the really hot weeks. They came and they cleared everything. They weeded it. We actually had 2 of the older guys who volunteer came in and gave them a little bit of guidance. But we now have a paved area outside the building that you can park your bicycles.
Very nice.
And this is to encourage people. This is actually a church group that came in, and we have a lot of people who say, oh, we can't volunteer because we've got children. And we can have them behind the line. They just can't serve hot food. But we also, that day, we were giving out ice cream and I think it was applesauce. So they can serve that. And I think if you get the notion of serving and volunteering into a child's head early, it's not going to leave that head. And we have a lot of church groups that come in, and the church leaders are, you know, the only adults in the group. And it's a lot of them come up and say that was really good fun. And that's State Senator Molly Kelly, who comes and volunteers, and if we ask her, she'll do anything. So she was serving gravy on a on a roast dinner day. But again, it's and I always like to say that the community kitchen, the word community is in the middle of our title for a very good reason. We are supported by the community that we then go back and serve. This was Antrim Elementary School, and they had a school-wide food drive, and they must have taken hours to build this wonderful sculpture. It certainly took us ages to break it down and load it into the van. But this is just, and it's a good way because, you know, even if they only bring in one can, it's helping. And again, this is Young Monadnock Cares at Keene High School. And they have done food drives in the past. This one, last autumn, just blew us away. They actually collected 2,500 pounds of food and helped us load it into the van. And our main driver said, "You didn't bring all of that back in the cargo van," which apparently we shouldn't have, but we did. And we keep our doors open by a variety of fundraising events. And I put this picture up because last Saturday was our Empty Bowls project, and it was the first time we had held it in a January, and it was really successful. And this was Jonathan Daniels' 5th grade, Fuller School 5th grade, Wheelock and Franklin schools all donated amazingly well-crafted bowls, but also a lot of local craftspeople did. The Monadnock area wood turners always give us some phenomenal. Wendy Thorpe Allen gave us some really beautiful stuff, and Corson Clay up in Gilsum also gave us some wonderful bowls. And we have to raise money constantly. We have a good core of supporters within the community, but we're now going to have our empty bowls in January, which is National Soup Month, so it worked out perfectly. The last 2 years we had a poker run, which we're also looking for new avenues for revenue. And the first year we made, I think it was $3,500, which for a one-day fundraiser is phenomenal. Last year we didn't make as much money, and I think it was because we weren't the first poker run of the year. So I'm not sure if we're going to hold that again. It's also an awful lot of organizing. But it was fun. It made me want a bike, so I'm not going to get one. But so I think it's you know, the fundraising events actually give different people a chance. We try and hold them, most of them, at the kitchen. Obviously, Pumpkin Fest is in downtown Keene, but it's nice for people to come in and see. We had people come in on Saturday, and last year we painted the dining room. When I started working there, the dining room was a very functional battleship grey, which didn't cheer anybody up. So we had, we're a fairly democratic organization, so I got color charts and we had a decision, and it's now a nice sunny yellow, and we painted it. We had 3 painting days during 2013. It started with the National Day of Service in January or February, and that group actually said they enjoyed it so much that they wanted to come back and paint as much as they could, and then we finished it with the Keene State Day of Giving in October. So I just, by including as many segments of the community, even if they don't come and volunteer, they don't need our service, by giving them different volunteer opportunities, it's a way of getting them inside the building.
So certainly volunteers are important to your organizational needs. It probably wouldn't be possible to accomplish what you do without volunteers being in there.
I don't think it would be.
So I'm sure you're always looking for that. And it sounds like you have a lot of donations of food.
Yes.
And a lot of great events out there, whether it's young people doing that great work or some of our area businesses and corporations supporting it. Are there other organizational needs? I know you just mentioned you had a sock drive, I think.
Well, we had a lady come on Saturday, and she's a manufacturer's rep. And she had, I think it's a bag, it's a Vera Bradley bag about this big, and it's full of single socks. But a lot of our clients, if you think of going out and buying clothing, it's really expensive. So I'm going to put that out at the evening meal this evening with a big sign saying, somewhere in there are pairs of socks if you don't mind that they don't match. And there are all sorts of sizes. So I mean, that's a great way of helping us. We also had coat drives at the beginning of the season. And then a lady came in again on Saturday, because we were open on Saturday. And her son, for his birthday, he had asked all the people who came to his birthday party to bring, not necessarily new, but gently used winter jackets. So we've got ski trousers that they've outgrown. We've got winter jackets. I mean, they're going to go in a heartbeat, because kids' clothes especially are really expensive.
And I know Timken recently did a coat drive and winter drive, and we were
CNS.
able through the United Way to distribute some of that to the different organizations. I think you benefited from that. And we
share. We share. If we got a lot of clothes donated by a lady who was more successful than I, losing weight, and she had a great business wardrobe. Now, we put some of the jackets out, but the clothing was too good, so we passed it on to Linda's Closet, which is another great organization, and they were just blown away. And we passed socks down to 100 Nights, and we don't actually give out household stuff anymore. So if we get it donated, we pass it on to other agencies. The Salvation Army will always take bed linens.
So that's great collaboration that's going on out there. What do you think the impact of the work you do is on the Monadnock region?
I think that we are a very unique part, but only a part, of the social service agencies within the area. Anecdotally, we have people come in and say, "You helped us so much when we needed it." And we very, very seldom see people who graduate out of our program, because they don't come back and say, "We don't need you," which is one of our problems, but it's a lovely problem to have. But when we find, there was a couple who came in and registered, and I felt really sad for the wife, because it is a horrible realization that you can't actually make ends meet. And she cried the entire time that they were registering, and we try and we walk them to the registration table and then guide them through the process. And I happened to see them at the end of probably their second or third visit. So it was 2 or 3 weeks down the road, and she said, "I can feed us for a week with this box." So if you think of when you go shopping, I mean, you don't, I'm only buying for 2 people and a small dog, and you very rarely get out of the supermarket for less than $100. If you can remove that burden from their financial nightmare that they're going through, it's actually, that's what we're there for.
What are some of the future directions of the kitchen?
Well, I think we have, I have an imagination that goes wild sometimes, but I really think that the cooking workshops, the budget classes, we could do so much more with that. We already work with the UNH Cooperative Extension. So we hosted the Cooking Matters class, which is great. And actually, Luca Paris was the surprise guest chef for the last class, which was wonderful. If we could do more of that and give people the tools, because if you're a young family and all of a sudden one of you loses even a part-time job, if you have basic budgeting skills to fall back on, then I think that would solve a lot of people's problems. And if we can offer them, even on a drop-in basis, I'd love to have other agencies use us, because people come to us every single week. So we've been doing some tabling. We had a food stamp clinic where people didn't actually fill out the forms for our clients. But if you've ever seen the food stamp form, it's actually quite convoluted, and you have to do an awful lot of, your household bills. And so if we could offer that sort of counseling, even if it's for a short time, I think it would be beneficial.
Now, can volunteers help with that, or is that something that...
No, I think we encourage, because a lot of the volunteers that we have, they've had a history of working. So, they have skills that they have used, and they will hand on those skills to other people.
So, Phoebe, I want you to share with the audience once again your contact information and where you're located, so that if they are interested in volunteering, they know where you are and how to do that.
We're right on Mechanic Street. The address is 37 Mechanic Street, but as you drive down, we're the beautiful brick building on the left-hand side. Our website is www.thecommunitykitchen.org, and the telephone number is 352-3200.
And I want to remind folks that you don't have to be based in Keene to be giving to the community kitchen, as we saw in the pictures. Antrim has done amazing work, the youth out there, Keene High School. I'm sure you have lots of other communities that you're networking with and
We
connecting
cover the entire Greater Monadnock region. We help. We also act as almost a wholesaler to the other pantries in the area, because we're a 501c3, which a lot of the smaller pantries aren't, so we can solicit funds. But we're partnered with the New Hampshire Food Bank. We have the space where a lot of the smaller pantries don't, so we receive pallets of food, and then if we have it, they can have it. A lot of the pantries submit a fax wish list every week, and our delivery measurement is a banana box. So they'll ask for 5 boxes of soup, and if we've got it, they can have it. CNS has recently given an amazing donation to the New Hampshire Food Bank of it's translated into 40,000 pounds of food.
Wow.
And we are receiving that on behalf of all of the pantries in Cheshire County. And we worked with the guys at the food bank, and they've proportionally broken it down, so we don't even have to do the math. So we're happy to do that.
Wow, that's a great service to the community and certainly to the region.
Yeah.
When you talk about the region, do most of the folks come from the Keene area, or are they really coming from much of our outlying towns?
Our hot meals is about 99% Keene, because a lot of them walk to the kitchen. Our pantry, it's about a little bit over 50% are Keene, but the rest is the entire county.
So you serve primarily Cheshire County.
Cheshire County, yes.
Do you reach into Hillsborough at all?
We will help them. Peterborough is in Hillsborough County, or is it in Merrimack? But we helped them. They wanted to reorganize their pantry and set up a verification. So I was happy to help them with that. And we will, if anybody comes in, nobody goes home empty-handed. If you come in and you apply, we will advise them where to go, because Peterborough has a food pantry. And if you're going to drive from Hillsborough to Keene to get 3 days' worth of food, that might take 1.5 gallons of gas, depending on your vehicle. So if you could access the pantry in Hillsborough, which they have one, Antrim has a food pantry, a small one, and Peterborough has one as well. So it might be more cost effective for them to stay in their own area. But whoever comes in, they get an emergency food box when they leave.
And I know I was just at a chamber meeting up in Peterborough, and the food pantry announced that they were thanking the businesses in that area for their donations, because it had filled the food pantry.
They have a lovely relationship with Shaw's in Peterborough. And I think it's because it's a smaller area. I went to Peterborough to shop the other day, and the Interact kids from Conval High School were having a food drive. And that's going to go directly into the Peterborough Food Bank, or food pantry, which is brilliant.
They're very active in that, I know,
Yes,
up
they
in
are.
that area, which is, again, fabulous, because that's really, the theme of this show is about living united, and it's about how we all come together to make things happen here in the Monadnock region for the better good. And
it gives us
welfare.
confidence. When I recommend that somebody goes to the Peterborough Food Pantry, I can do it with confidence now, that they're open 5 mornings a week and I think it's Wednesday evening, so the access is there. And I'm not sending people to a place that isn't going to help them.
So if you had to share a message with the community about some of your needs, what you'd like to see changing for the better, what would that be?
That is a very hard question. Thank you for that one. There was a television program on over the weekend about the income gap. And we have it in this area. And what I want people to realize is that when you go out to eat, the person who serves you, a tipped wage is less than $3 an hour. And so, you know, how can you, that isn't a livable wage. And there was a gentleman who was saying that the rich were getting a bad rap. I think anybody who is a millionaire or a billionaire and doesn't pay their, and if anybody in their companies that they own or if they have owned is earning a minimum wage, then shame on them. And I think one message I would like to get across is that not everybody who comes to the community kitchen is a homeless person. We are serving people who own their own homes and are having a really hard time paying the heating bills, paying the mortgage because an income may have been lost, or even a medical bill might be needed to be paid. And we might be a temporary solution, but I think it's a solution that needs to be there.
I think you raise a great point, and I know the well-being assessment that was done here in the Monadnock region, that we found that livable wage is very much an issue here.
Yeah.
And that the greater percentage of folks are not earning enough to really be able to meet all their basic needs,
Yep.
things like food and making
Yep.
sure they have shelter and warmth. So the service you provide becomes even more critical. And you're right, until we probably address some of those things, it's going to be challenging. And,
Yes.
you know, part of the reason I asked that question, you thanked me for asking the question, but part of the reason I asked that is because it's so important that we become advocates in the world. And certainly sitting in the position that you sit, you have that opportunity to be an advocate. And you just did that. There's lots of other opportunities to do that.
We were lucky last year to be asked, the community kitchen was asked to join a near statewide gleaning program. And I was really lucky to hire Sarah Harpster as our gleaning coordinator. She's an Antioch graduate, and she and I made a very conscious effort last year to start and get out. And we're a 501c3, so we're very limited in the political comments that we can make, but you can go out and join organizations. We're happy to be part of United Way. We are working with the Monadnock Farm and Community Coalition, which is the local food. You know, we really shouldn't be buying radishes and tomatoes that are grown in anywhere that it takes so much of a carbon footprint to get here, but we're so used to having food 12 months of the year now. So we're trying to get people to eat locally. What I think most people wouldn't realize that most small farmers in this part of the world would actually qualify for a box if they came in and filled out their incomes. And we were happy to be part of a place at the table, the showing at the Colonial. And it's just putting a face on the numbers. I can say that last year we served 9,079 unduplicated individuals. But if you say that it's actually workers from Keene, it's seniors who live in your neighborhood who are actually coming through. It's kids who, we had one woman who came in and her husband, for some reason, has just stopped paying child support. And at the moment, she has no money coming in. So it's, you know, you've got to put faces onto the numbers. And it's really hard. And obviously, we protect our clients' anonymity with a vengeance, but you have to try and point out who is coming through the kitchen. And it's every strata of the society that we live in.
So an important service, some real needs on your part in terms of potentially volunteers, certainly. You mentioned the clothing and things that gets dropped off there, put to good use, whether it's through your facility or relationships you have with others. And probably in the future, it sounds like with the need growing, people's circumstances changing, perhaps a new need for a building even.
If we actually grow the programs that we do, I think we are going to have to think in that direction. It's a huge step, though.
You mentioned that a lot of the local growers, and I know I belong to a CSA here in the Monadnock region, and I believe a lot of them have developed relationships with the community kitchen. We saw the boxes of food and the fresh produce there. I believe a lot of that is actually donated through many of our CSAs.
And we had like an ad hoc arrangement with a lot of them, having Sarah on the staff so that there is a definite person to go to, and all the farmers we're hoping are going to get to know her on a first name basis. But one of the first things that she did was went and set up a table at the farmers market in Keene. So at the end of the market, she would then go around, she would put a couple of boxes out, and you'd be amazed how many of the farmers just didn't take their product home at the end of the day, but gave it to us. And they then invited us to glean, which is going in and picking up the product that they're not going to harvest from their fields. They've either overplanted just to give them a little bit of wiggle room, or we were invited to Tracy's farm in Fitzwilliam, and they had mesclun mix that it was wet and warm at one part of last summer, and she wasn't going to be able to pick it in time. So we got the call on a Monday morning saying, if you want to come and pick it, you've got until 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, because that's when we're plowing it under. So Sarah put out a gleaning call, and she and I think 2 other volunteers went and picked 200 pounds of mesclun mix, which is an awful lot. But it's also, I saw it in Hannaford's that week for $8.99 a pound. So we were able in the pantry to hand out mesclun mix, and it went like it was hotcakes fresh out of the oven. It was amazing.
I think people have a real fondness for, excuse me, for local produce and certainly fresh.
Well, and it's product that is farm and garden fresh. We offer a lot of fruits and vegetables, but they're salvaged. So they're almost to the end of their shelf life. They're perfectly good, and it's perfectly safe to use them. But to actually bring in, we had Brussels sprouts that one of the farmers dropped off, and she went just down and pulled up all her plants. So they came with roots and soil and all. So we had to, but that's fantastic. I love that they even think of us. We're trying to encourage people to plant even an extra row for us, and we're going to appeal to domestic gardeners and maybe some of the small vegetable farmers. We're talking about, we're having lovely conversations with the Community Gardens Connection, and everything that is planted in an acre up at the old Westmoreland County Garden is going to come directly to the community kitchen. So the community kitchen has a community garden, which is another opportunity for volunteers. Basically, we're open from 8 till 6. Well, if you work, then a lot of people say, I wish I could volunteer. Well, now they can. They can go and, I don't know, pick tomatoes or something, which...
Or plant them.
Or plant them, yes.
So the need will be coming up soon. The audience, I really want to draw your attention to what Phoebe's saying about being part. If you're a gardener and you love to garden, here's a chance to contribute and do something you love and have a passion for. And volunteer at the same time, making a difference. If you're a CSA, plant that extra row, think about how they can give to the community kitchen. And then, certainly you saw the pictures of volunteers, whether you're young, whether you're in your senior years or in between, opportunity to go to the kitchen and serve during the hot meals time, to contribute to the boxes. If you're a home gardener, and you have, I know I garden, and when tomatoes come in, they come in abundance. Same with the, zucchini and summer squash and all of those wonderful things. And, don't feel like you have to put them in the compost pile necessarily. There's certainly a great place we can bring those extras to.
Well, a lot of the apples, we had a group from Keene State who said that they had a group of 17 people. And so Sarah got up an applesauce workshop. And I think they went through 22 cases of apples, which is hundreds of pounds of apples. And we came out with applesauce that was made in our kitchen, and we had actually frozen it and sealed it in bags and could hand it out. We used a lot of it in the hot meals. They do a wonderful smothered pork chop dish, but we handed it out through the pantry as well.
Wow. So some great things going on there.
I think so.
I'm going to ask you to share your contact information once again.
It is www.thecommunitykitchen.org. Our telephone number is 352-3200. anybody can come in. If you're walking down or driving down Mechanic Street, come in and have a look around. I will give everybody or anybody a tour at the drop of a hat. I'm actually really proud of what we do and how we do it, and I am always looking for an excuse to have a cup of tea.
And Phoebe and I both have a fondness for tea, so we like to share stories about that. But I would certainly encourage folks to stop by there, whether you want to volunteer, just see the facility itself. But if you are a person in need and you're feeling, that you're having trouble stretching that last dollar, certainly go down and see the community kitchen. It could make a real difference.
And we encourage them to potential clients to come in on a Wednesday and a Thursday. We can process their applications the other day, but if they come in on a Wednesday and Thursday, they will definitely go home with a full pantry box.
And that's a box that will have 3 days
Yes.
of meals for them.
Yes.
So that's important. Great work that you're doing out there, Phoebe. We're so happy
you.
that not only the United Way can support you, and remember that it's not the United Way, it's all of you that are the donors to the United Way that support the community kitchen. And just fabulous things happening there. It's a struggle to see that there's still such a need for this,
Yeah.
but we have you working very hard and the folks and the volunteers there to make a difference in regards to this. Any last thoughts?
Well, and it's hard to go back to the donors and say specifically what you do, but we were doing the numbers, and everybody who contributed to the United Way and the money that got funneled into us, we're open 6 days a week. The United Way money enabled us to be open 3/4 of one of those days. So, and for the whole year, which, we try and save every penny. If anybody comes in and sees our place, it's functional. It is not beautiful. But so anybody who donated to the United Way enabled us to stay open for 3/4 of one of those days, which is fairly fantastic.
Well, we're glad that we have the donors out there able to provide that and support.
And I always try and stress that if you volunteer, it can be once a month, but it doesn't have to be on a regular, because people are busy. People's lives are busy, and so you can actually give us your schedule and say, I can only come in 3 times a year, and we are happy to have people. We have companies who come in once a month, but it's the company that is committed to that once a month, and then they have an organizer within the company. So they send a team. It might not be the same team every month, but we appreciate every single minute that people volunteer.
So you heard it here. You need to give, volunteer, advocate. It's what this show's all about. It's about Living United. Community Kitchen is a great partner in that. We invite you to join with them. I want to thank you, Phoebe, for being with us tonight. Doing some, again, great work out there, and we encourage people to get involved, be a part of this, whether it's the community kitchen or another human service agency in the region. You are the people that really truly make a difference, whether it's through your giving, your advocating, or your volunteering. If you'd like to share a story with us about the work that you're doing that you think makes a difference in the Monadnock region, contact us at Monadnock United Way. Each week we look for someone that we can recognize with a Live United t-shirt. You saw in our last show that we were able to give one to a volunteer out in the community. We encourage you to volunteer and to join in these great efforts. Thanks for being with us.